welcome to the Conscious Broadcast. I'm Danielle Kane, and I have a very lovely special guest today, Ashli Scott from Lunar Crystalline, who I get to, yes, I've been waiting to bring you on for a while. I've talked about you on my recaps quite a bit. So
Beautiful. I'm excited to be here. It's an
yay.
honor.
You've been very helpful on my journey from the newest chapter that I'm on, and it's been lovely. So I'm going to just do I'm going to do an introduction. I don't know if it'll be quick.
Okay. Okay.
We laugh because I was trying to
Roll out the scroll.
trying to explain what Ashli does. I'm like, what do I call you? She's like, Ashli. I was like, no, like, how do I tell people like who you are, what you do? So you'll know now why she's this amazing individual. Okay, so she is the owner and founder of this awesome business, Lunar Crystalline, and she has a passion, and that is to invoke magic and ritual in everyday life. She's a mother, a poet, and a student of life, for life, I would say, because she's constantly
Yeah.
learning and improving, and I can see it. While I'm her mentee, she's also a mentee for somebody, so I can definitely see that in the way
Yes.
that she comes across in our meetings. She works in a variety of modalities and uses her psychic intuitive gifts as well as her clients' astrological charts to create customized plans of healing from the inside out. She's a certified herbalist and a medicine woman, a creatrix, love it, intuitive energy healer, acupuncturist, parasympathetic pleasure, and somatic practitioner. She practices witchcraft, I'm assuming, and oracle
Yeah.
readings, specializing in astral and herbal magic. Maybe I said that wrong, but
Ancestral. Yeah. And
ancestral.
astral. Yeah, I do
Oh, did I
planetary
say
magic as
astral?
well.
Ancestral.
Yeah, so I mean, I
But
do that as
you
well.
do that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
I got tripped up with some wording there. In addition, Ashli is a primal movement instructor and sacral embodiment coach, which allows students to connect their sacral energy and tap into the bowl of creation that lies within becoming empowered and in tune with their emotional and physical body through sensuality and intimacy. She works in many modalities, as you can see, so she can help
Yeah.
others learn to regulate their nervous system and step into their spirit with the understanding there is no one size fits all approach to healing and that we are all on our own unique unfolding. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that uh,
Yeah.
bio for me to tell the world because I don't know. It was funny when I got this great opportunity to go on this retreat. I was talking to Beck, our mutual friend who was running the retreat, and you guys were also part of that. And she was like, "You're probably going to connect with Ashli," and I think she knew
Yeah.
right away. I was like, "I didn't
Yeah.
know. I didn't know what to expect." But as soon as I met you, she was bringing out. She made a beautiful tea blend for the group every day. And when she was telling me what she was putting in there, because I had worked with a nutritionist before an herbologist, I'm like, this girl knows something. She
Yeah.
knows what she's doing, and I like it, and I want to know more. So
Yeah.
you pulled me in with that, and then you went off on all this other stuff. So
Yeah. All that other stuff. And I
how
didn't
did
even
you
name all of
accomplish
the
all this
things.
stuff? And you're only like in your early 30s, girl.
Yeah, I'm 36. I just had my solar return.
Yay! Happy
I've
birthday.
been, thank you. Yes. I've been on this path for, it's been a minute. So it's been about 16, 17 years now. I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart, and Sagittarius is the learner, the truth seeker. Yeah, the wanderer also. So I personally, for my own healing journey, just knowing how I am and that I like to be dabbling in a lot of different things. I understand that we have many facets of the self, of the
Hmm.
soul. And so everything that I work in was a part of my own personal journey of healing, right? That's still continuing, that's always going to be continuing. And so something that I noticed just in modern society is that there tends to be a lot of very what's the word? There's not a lot of customized healing
Hmm.
plans. It's kind
Hmm.
of like we're given a lot of standardized applications for healing. It always makes me think of like the school system, like traditional school system, where it's like if you're not learning this way, then there's something wrong, or we're
Hmm.
taught that there's something wrong with us, and that's just not true. It's not the reality of how life is. So it was very important to me as I was kind of stepping into this being like living my life's work of being of service, that I had a lot of tools in my belt, not only for myself, but for those I was working with.
Mhm.
So that way things could kind of become more of an embodied practice, and could be more structured in a way that felt good and felt personalized for them. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
So take me down the journey of you. So
Of
did you
Ashli, the journey
start
of
with being
Ashli.
an what was the first thing that you really connected with?
The first thing were the plants. The first things I connected with were the herbs, and
Mhm.
the magic in the herbs. I can remember I always can go back to like the first time, like even stepping into like the magic and the gifts aspect. But ever since I was like a young child, I've also always had this affinity for making concoctions and putting plants together. And I've also always been very drawn to nature and being outside and learning about my local environment and building a connection with plants. So it definitely started with the herbs.
Mhm.
Um, and that was just from a very young age. And then that was the first thing though that I went in for a certification, because I was practicing and using it, and then I was like, okay, this is a modality of medicine that I want to work in.
Mhm.
um, and then I started incorporating that with my own intuitive gifts and started dabbling in herbal magic, probably around the age, very seriously around the age of 20.
Mhm.
I remember I was working as a dental assistant. I've lived many lives. I was working as a dental assistant, and I remember being in a very sterile environment. You know, I was working in the back in the lab, so it just smells like cleaner back there. And I remember I was thinking of my grandmother, Irma, who I was very close to as a little girl, and she had passed away. And I remember standing there and I was thinking of her, and all of a sudden I smelled her perfume, very
Mhm.
distinct. And then the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and then I heard my name in my right ear. And I was like, what just happened? I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, what's that? And I just felt her there. And so I was like, okay, what is this? And that started my exploration into the clairs of intuition and learning
Mhm.
about those. So that was actually clairaudience. Um, and then it kind of unraveled from that point. Then it was just kind of like learning how to work through my own like childhood and sexual trauma.
Mhm.
And that's when I became interested in that work and somatic work and working with the parasympathetic system, working to use energy to unblock and heal wounds in the body.
Mhm.
And then let's see, what else do I do? I do so many
Yeah,
things.
so yeah, and then how about like all the astrology, human design, and
Yeah.
gene
So,
keys? I mean, we really you've given me charts on human design and gene keys, but you really
yeah.
the first time went
Yeah.
into the details of my astrology, which I'm like a
Yeah, we just did that.
baby. I'm a baby in a lot of these areas,
Yeah.
but it's okay because it's like I
Yeah.
had this huge awakening and like you reeled me back into be like, let's walk this through, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, astrology. So I've been working with astrology and human design probably more so over the past 3 to 4 years, like very
Mhm.
intently. I've always been drawn to the sky, and like tracking the patterns of like the constellations. I'm very connected to the moon, so I've always worked with the moon. I work in a lot of lunar magic. I'm a Cancer ascendant, which you also are.
Yeah.
So we have this affinity for the moon. You know, Cancer is the only zodiac sign ruled by the moon. So that pull to the sky, yes,
I
was
pulled the moon
always
card
very
today,
potent.
by the way.
Yes,
Speaking of you,
good.
I was
Yes,
like,
and we are in
oh
a new,
shoot, I'm in a
yeah,
new moon today.
a new moon. Yes, new moon in Sagittarius today. So, you know, I've always had an affinity for the sky and just the correlation of how we are affected by the different phases of the moon, how we can even just look to the sky to kind of get an internal temperature of how we're doing emotionally, you know, because the moon is the emotions, it's the body, the soma. Yeah. So getting into astrology was just kind of the next step, because when I was working about 3 years ago is when I started working with people more on like a full-time basis. And I found it very interesting the way the charts and the human design is essentially giving us this map of how to of what our operating system is, right? It's kind of giving us the blueprint,
Hmm.
and it helped me to customize the plants and the healing strategies in a way that actually fit the energetics of the person. I do a lot of things intuitively, but I also believe in learning and gaining wisdom from others, so that way it can be plugged and played in to facilitate, to find the connection, right? Because
Sure.
something that I really love doing is like connecting my own intuitive pings with what's actually happening in someone's chart. So I essentially like to divine, and then I check the chart to see how that divination correlates with their own personal story, because that's what astrology is, right? It's like a story of someone's life. That's what human design is. It's like essentially the chapters in the
Yes.
unfolding of our life. Yeah. So it was just another, it just made sense. It was the next step to kind of
To
branch out,
branch
create more
out because you're
cohesion
like
with
multiple
everything.
branches here and
Yeah.
twigs. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like you pull by so many different things from past lives and
Yeah.
past lifetimes. You're like, I'm gonna bring that
Hmm.
right on back, and I remember that.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, you also have talked about what about your acupuncture? You're an acupuncturist too?
Acupressurist,
Oh,
so not puncture. So I
acupressurist.
don't.
I said
Yes,
that wrong.
pressurist. Yes. So yeah, because acupuncture is the needle. So I
Oh yeah,
do emotional
acupressure.
acupressure. Yeah. So I got. I was actually really excited about that. So I was already kind of intuitively, what it is working with the meridian lines, the energy
Yeah.
channels of the body. Yeah. The meridian lines are essentially like the highway of energy in the body. And so I was already kind of doing that on an intuitive level. And then when I was sitting in meditation one day, my guides told me, they were like, you need to take this deeper, because I do a lot of work with the pelvic floor and the sacral region. And something that I was coming in contact with was a lot of disorders in the spleen and the
Mm-hmm.
liver,
Mm,
which connect to a lot of deep seated emotions and wounds that a lot of us carry, just stress, over worrying, anxiety, most importantly, like suppressed anger.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah. And so I just kind of became fascinated with the way that the soma, the body, works in those energy channels, and using the pressure points to help to release stagnancy in the body. Because I am like a big advocate for physical touch in my sessions. And so that was just kind of the next step, and like learning triggering points and de-armoring points, and learning how to work with the pressure points to bring about certain emotional relief and healing. Yeah. So I typically couple the acupressure with my massage session. So I am a massage therapist as well.
Oh,
I work
wow.
with like lymphatic and lomi lomi, and tantric massage right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm getting a couple other certificate. I'm always
As I said,
continued
you're a constant
education.
learner here.
Yeah, I am. I'm probably in about 8 different certifications
Gosh, by the
right
time
now.
you're like 80, you're going to be like, you've lived everybody's lifetime here.
Yeah, that's Sag life.
I got
Because
15
Sagitt.
job.
Yeah,
You remember that
because
back in
it's
the day
yeah, yeah.
from what was that, In Living Color?
Yeah, and it's like that, and it's, I just love to learn, and I love to, more importantly, learn how to embody those things and put them into practical
Yeah.
application. So it's like I said, I'm always in some sort of continued education, because I just always feel like it always gets greater later, is something my partner always says. And so it's also kind of this idea of just constantly growing and expanding and testing my edge and seeing how
Hmm.
far I can push it, right? Because I know, like, the more informed I am, the more knowledge that I can hold about myself, the better of service I can be to others around me, right? So I'm
Yeah.
always looking to add tools to my toolkit, because we need so many different ones at so many different points in
Yeah.
our life. It's constantly changing, as are we.
And it could be
So
just your design too, that this is, like you said, the
it
wonder,
is.
the
It
curiosity.
is my design. I'm a manifesting generator with a sacral
Mm.
authority in my
Hmm.
human design. And I'm also the investigative martyr in my type. So, and with my Sag, I have a Sagittarius stellium in my sixth house. Sixth house is the house of service, of health, right? So it's like I'm constantly trying to expand my knowledge base. I love
Hmm.
to learn about different things, different cultures. I love to learn about people. So that way I can, yeah, because through helping people and learning about people, I'm also learning about myself as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I
It
mean,
is very much in my design.
yeah, I was just the level of care that you have is impeccable. I mean, so
Mm.
this retreat, y'all. I went and
Yeah,
was gifted
it was
this
great.
wonderful gift from a friend, Shannon, who hopefully will hear this. Thank you, Shannon, again and again and again.
Yeah.
To go to this witch womb retreat in Salem, Massachusetts, which
Mhm.
will tie in nicely to what we're talking about here. And
Yes,
Ashley was,
absolutely.
yeah, and she was one of the facilitators or the people
Mhm.
running the show. And we were served beautifully by each and every one of you. So there were four. And
Yeah.
it was Beck who, would you say she was the main coordinator?
Oh, she was
Yes.
definitely the matriarch. This was
Yeah.
her
This was her baby,
brainchild, and
right?
then she brought me in. Yeah, she
Okay.
brought me in, and then we brought Anna and Katie on.
Anna
Yeah,
and Katie, and everyone had their role, and everyone
yeah,
did a fantastic job. And when Ashley would, everyone had to present something, and they did this for a week straight. I mean, they had a plan. They
yeah.
stuck to the plan pretty much. I mean, there had to
We
be
did. Yeah,
flexibility towards the end, and I think you guys loaded in a ton of stuff, and it was
we did.
fantastic. But every time you sat, your intention was so specific. Like we all had
Mhm.
our phones on recording what Ashley had to say because it was so detailed and so well thought to help that each of us where we were on this journey to kind of
Yeah.
further dive into the healing journey or just where are we? How do we feel about this? To literally the medicine that you brought in to just some daily practice. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really wonderful. So I want to honor you for that level of
Thank
effort
you.
for that retreat. You
Thank you.
did a great job. So much that I was like, girl, can we be friends and can I work with you? You're like, yeah, I knew he would.
Yep.
So
I did.
yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, we went to Salem for the day. We were actually outside of Salem. Where were we staying again? I forget the town.
Oh gosh. Why is it? It's escaping me
Is it
now.
W with a W or an M? I can't remember because Manchester
Manchester
by the
by the
sea.
Sea.
Yeah, Manchester
That's
by
right.
the sea. And I
Where
had
were we? I
family.
don't know. That was like such a time warp.
It's okay. I had family in Marblehead, and we just went to Marblehead
Okay.
again
That's
for
right.
Thanksgiving. So I was getting
Beautiful.
confused, but we went to Salem for the day. I've never been, and we a lot of us about magic and witchcraft, I think have a
Mhm.
misunderstanding of what it
Yeah.
is. And I would love for you to share a little bit about it. And even when I went into the museum, I was really excited about, well, the museum was outdated to me a little bit. It was
Yeah, it
a little
was a little bit.
interesting.
I didn't
Had
yeah.
But when we went to the back end, I took a picture of the wall basically of how they used fear to basically
Mhm.
take control over certain time periods. And it's basically we would all be considered witches at some point because if you didn't follow the
Absolutely.
narrative, you were classified as a
Then
witch.
you were a witch.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so the wall
I mean,
basically said it, and I'm like, wow,
yep.
that's powerful message. And
Yeah.
also just like if you are an herbalist or if you're someone who wants to go
Mhm.
a naturopath or any kind of movement like what we do at the
Yeah,
gym, movement medicine,
absolutely.
that's
Mhm.
considered witchcraft.
It is, yeah.
Crazy.
And I think there's like this negative connotation because it
Yeah.
kind of got taken over by, pop culture. Where
Right.
when we think of a witch, we think of the first thing that comes to mind is like the Wizard of Oz, right? And the Wicked
Right.
Witch of the West. But really, at its essence, what a witch is someone who's connected to their power, someone who's connected to the elements, who's drawn to nature, who works with the world around them to change results, to transmute. Um, Essentially, like a very simple definition that I always tell people, a witch is simply someone in their power.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
And when we're talking about how that word was, words are a very interesting thing. I think sometimes words tend to muddle the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they can tend to change the narrative of what the true energy is of certain things. And so again, which is just a name that was given to things that were not understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they even
And
called
so,
like they even called when we were through there, excuse me, sorry to interrupt you,
yeah, no, you're good.
if you gave like a midwife was considered a witch.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean, we have
absolutely.
midwives in our practice. I mean, a lot of people can respect the art of delivering a child, and
Yeah,
we've lost a lot of that, unfortunately, through
right.
the healthcare system. And you've
Yep.
got operators. You got
Right.
operators or surgeons, and not people that
Hmm.
are actually meant to, birth children.
Birth on their own. Yeah. 100%. It's like people were birthing children way before any of this ever existed.
Right.
Yeah. And
And
again,
I'm not saying I'm
essentially
not
it's about,
honoring people that
right.
need
Oh, no,
emergency care.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. But I think at the core of it is really this kind of battle of, it's really essentially about power. It's
Hmm.
about power being taken away from the self. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this false conceived notion that we aren't powerful or aren't able to be our own healers or aren't able to bring about the things in the world that we want to just by existing and with our intention. Yeah. Of course,
Yeah.
there's action that comes into play with that. But I think a lot of the premise of witch and just the idea of that is it's about power. It's about power being taken away. Um, because if we're in our power, then we become dangerous. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then
I
a
can
lot
see
of
that.
the structures that are set up today in society would be unneeded if
Yeah.
more of us were in our power, right? And I think
Sure.
there's a place for everything, and I'm all for like the advancement of technology in the world as it is, but I also think what's been happening is it's disconnected us from something as simple as nature. You know,
Mhm.
the nature that exists outside of us also exists within us. Yeah. And I think that a lot of us have really lost connection with that because we live in a society that teaches us to dissociate, to distract,
Yeah.
right? And so, even our own internal guidance system, that we are literally a mirror of nature, we've learned to be disconnected from that. You know, and so when you become connected with that and you tap back into the self, that's being a witch. Connecting the as within to the so without, yeah, the as
Yeah.
above to the so below, like that's a witch, right?
Right. Right.
Um, and that's a powerful thing. And a lot of people are scared of that. And so I
Yeah.
think in pop culture, it was kind of given this negative connotation or to be something seen as evil or unsavory because like I said, if we were all in our power, then we'd all be walking around healed and I'd be out of a job in some sense. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, but there would be a lot of people. And so that's really, I am a practicing witch and I have no problem saying that to anyone. I've never had a problem. I always hold so much compassion and understanding to that word and how sometimes it's a little difficult for people to step into that. That's why we did a
Right.
retreat on the witch wound
Yeah.
to kind of take back the narrative of that word and
Right.
to show that it means so many different things.
Absolutely.
Because really, it's just about understanding that we are magic. Innately, the body is magic. To be able to see the magic in everything, the fact that we can breathe without thinking is magic. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
I
I
tend to ramble, and you know this about me.
Oh,
So,
well, this is your hour, girl. You could say all that you want. I really appreciate this because too, in the line of work that I do, and it's funny, I was chatting with another practitioner of soul center healing hypnosis, where we
yeah.
work in the
Hmm.
areas of clearing any kind of
Yeah.
stagnant energy, any dark
Mhm.
energy, any kind of
Yep.
magic spells that are to harm
Yeah.
someone. So we all
Mhm.
are aware of this side as well. We're not going to discount that either, but I do believe like we we tend to take one thing and then that's it. That's all that there is.
Yeah.
So, I have thankfully the gift of intuition. We talked about this in
Yes.
our healing session the other day, and I never really
Mhm.
knew that what that was, but I didn't realize I can spot when someone is of not, I guess, good intention, good light.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I was a little naive when I allowed that energy to come through and work with me. And then I could
Mhm.
see clearly in its face because they show themselves, they show that
Right.
what they're doing and taking advantage. And so
Mhm.
that's part of the process of working with anybody that you
Yeah.
want to connect with. I always say, even be working with a practitioner in hypnosis or in other kind of
Mhm.
modalities, even with fitness, even if you go to a church, you're all want to have discernment with if you decide you
Mhm.
want to go to a congregation or a place,
Mhm.
feel the energy out, feel if it's a right fit for you. And like I said, I was drawn to Ashli immediately. I knew what she was doing. I was watching you very closely just to see, what you were doing. And I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
person has done a ton of, I don't want to
Mhm.
use the word work, but you have. You worked so much.
Yeah.
I can tell that you're not messing around and you're here to really help people, and
Yeah.
you're constantly growing and evolving. And I was
Mhm.
just really attracted to that. And I realized on my journey that I now needed to tap into the lower areas that I had
Mhm.
kind of disconnected from. And I wasn't
Yeah. Mhm.
really ever given a roadmap of
Right.
that. So I
Yeah.
very, very, very grateful to
Mhm.
feel the comfort, the maternal love that you give to me in our sessions.
Yeah.
So I just say that to anybody who really wants someone that does not have that judgment, that's just there to hold space for you and can bring
Mhm.
in a ton of resources. Ashley
Yeah.
is amazing.
Oh goodness. Now I'm blushing. Um,
Seriously. And I know it's me
but
doing the work. I know it's me doing the work,
yes, it is you doing the work.
but
Yes.
I don't think I've ever had, I told you this before, a maternal figure that's ever
Yeah.
made me feel safe.
I
So
take that
in this
very
way, in this
highly.
capacity of where I'm
Yeah.
like sharing and I'm you know, being extremely vulnerable. I think I'm pretty
Yeah.
vulnerable in general, and
Yes.
but
Hmm.
to this level, it's even deeper.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think because what I try to strive to do too is to also be vulnerable. Because I think sometimes too we forget our humanness. And
Mm-hmm.
um and something, and you know, because I'll always ask you, where are you feeling it in your body? And this is something that I really drive home with people, because it's like you even saying that you needed to work with the lower ends, and really what it is like trusting your body,
Yeah.
because we all are intuitive in nature, but I think we can tend to get very distracted and very heady. Like I said, there's a lot of distractions, right, that keep
Mm-hmm.
us very much up here, that
Mm-hmm.
we forget to listen to our body. So it's like even when we're in certain situations, we have a tendency to overthink it instead of feel
Yeah.
what's the right thing, right? So a big thing that I do, and you can kind of see all of the things I work with kind of connect to the somatic work, right, of
Yeah.
learning what your energy is, how your body is speaking to you, because our body is our biggest guidance system and how to navigate life. Like we can trust the body. That's why you always hear the saying, like, I had a gut feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I could sense that. That's a sensory thing. That's a body thing. And so I really like to help people fall more into that, like trusting what the body is speaking as opposed to what the mind is saying. Because it's
Yes.
like that saying, believe nothing you see and only half of what you hear.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in what you feel. Yeah.
I think you're the first person that actually told me to like trust your feelings. I can't tell you how
Yeah.
wrong I've been made to feel wrong in like my
Yeah.
early on profession for being a feeler. Like that's not bad. You need to be intuitive. That's not, feelings are not intuitive. And I'm like, okay, well, I must be a really horrible employee if feelings
Yeah.
are not intuitive, because that's how I go through things. That's how I understand the
Absolutely.
world.
And you're also a Cancer ascendant like me. And
Right.
so we are feelers. Like our intuition
Absolutely.
is based in our emotions.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we're emotional healers, yeah?
yeah. Yeah. So
Mhm.
at one point in time, there was like a company that used the Myers-Briggs. I don't know if you've heard
Mhm.
of Myers-Briggs.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think I might have actually shifted from being intuitive to like a thinker and intuition or whatever, because I
Mhm.
think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was all about thinking, because I had to be
Mhm.
more up here to
Mhm.
feel safe, you know? And
Right.
so as I started
Mhm.
to realize my own kind of truth come into my reality, I started putting down the guard, because I'm like, oh, I just don't have to participate over there. Like that doesn't
Right.
have to be in my reality if I don't want to. I don't have to
Mhm.
entertain that. I'm going to go to a place
Exactly.
where I feel good about myself. And
Mhm.
I really didn't know that to be my reality for many years. I thought I had to play in
Yeah.
the corporate pool where I just
Right.
was drowning in it.
Yep. And I think too, it's interesting because like the corporate pool too. I mean, we do live in like a patriarchal society,
Hmm.
and I'm a big advocate for like honoring the divine masculine and the divine feminine. When we talk about the structure in which our society is built off of, it is a very patriarchal or very masculine
Yeah.
um, presence, right? And so I think especially too for women and men, that's where kind of like our main energy essence has kind of gotten distorted, where we as women we are supposed to be receptive
Hmm.
and we are supposed to feel. We're right side thinkers, right? Right side of the brain is intuitive, it's
Mhm.
emotional, right? We are this emotional well of feelings, yeah?
Yeah.
And intuiting the world around us based off of our womb space, essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas men are left side brain, logical, rational. So we've kind of gotten this distorted place to where we are trying to think about things when really we're supposed to be feeling. And then we even look at the dichotomy of just the masculine and feminine within each of us, whether you identify as a male or a female. And I think so oftentimes we get so far in the end, like just the way everything is set up, it's very masculine in a lot
Mhm.
of spaces to where we're always trying to rationalize everything and think about
Absolutely.
everything, that we're very much disconnected from the body and how the two connect, as opposed to it's always this idea of like it has to be this or that instead of this and that, which
Right.
is what I like to tell people, right? It's both ends, not either or.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
feel like we all have qualities of both. I don't know if that's something that's lost
Yes.
in translation right now with what's going on in the
I think
world,
so.
that like
Yeah.
we all
I
have qualities. I mean, I know I'm more in the masculine sometimes because I've had to
Mhm.
survive. I've been in this
Absolutely.
survival. What did you say? I'm in the parasympathetic or
Yeah, well, you're in your sympathetic. Yeah, so the survival state is typically it's the sympathetic
the
system. So it's
sympathetic,
about action, movement. It's about typically that's where our attachment cries lie, right? So it's like that fight,
fight or
flight,
flight. Right.
freeze. Yeah, freeze, fawn, appeasement,
Hmm.
find. You know what I mean? Where it's like, um, we do have to survive, so we go into this survival state, right? And we think that that's how we have to exist. And the sympathetic is very important too, because again, it is action and
It's
movement. We need to
absolutely
get things
necessary.
done.
Hmm.
Right, but it's about learning. The parasympathetic is where we rest and digest. It's connected to the gut. The vagus nerve is the vehicle for the parasympathetic system. It's called the wandering nerve that runs along the spine. And so the parasympathetic is more about connection, integration, but there's also two branches of the
Hmm.
parasympathetic where we have the ventral, which is more in this space of like the digest, the integration, right? Being mellow, being present. And then we have the dorsal, which is depression, numbness,
Hmm.
dissociation. So, really, the idea is where we want to be able to flow, just like in life, where we want to flow between the dualistic nature of all things, the light and the dark, right? The
Yeah.
masculine, the feminine. There's this window of capacity we want to be flowing through with the sympathetic and the ventral parasympathetic. And I think a lot of people exist in a state of high panic or anxiety because we've been programmed to be in this survival space. So that's why I love to teach people about one, become aware of your attachment cry.
Hmm.
What is your survival mechanism? Because I've also lived in my masculine for a very long time because I had to get stuff done. Like I lived in a lot of trauma, and it was also kind of that idea of if I'm not going to do it, it's never going to be done right type of mentality, right? And always having to
Right.
assert and be in action and drive, but it always had me in a constant state of go, 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 go. And there was no rest, right? There was no
Yeah.
integration. And
Right.
integration is such a big, potent part of any type of work that you're doing. Because I think, too, now I'm going to go on a ramble, because I think, too, because we live in a world where it's so much like instant gratification and we're always looking for these really big experiences and things to take us outside of ourselves or into ourselves to show us who we are, we forget about the integration aspect,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that integration aspect of anything that you're participating in life is actually where the girth is. That's actually
Hmm.
where the growth is, right? Because sometimes we get addicted to the high
Sure.
of the experiences, right? What were we even talking about?
Well,
I'd
we
be
were talking
rambling.
about we have to honor both sides, the
Oh
masculine
yeah,
and
the
feminine
both.
energy within
Absolutely.
ourselves. And I think people are
100%.
misconstruing that if they feel more feminine, that they are, that's all that they are. And we
Exactly.
have both within ourselves. I can take on that role, but I still feel very connected to that feminine energy and even being introduced to stuff that
Hmm.
wasn't comfortable for the feminine side,
Right.
but I don't
Absolutely.
have any issues just being me. I've always felt like, okay, I'm a little unique, I'm a little different, sometimes
Hmm.
not comfortable in my body, but not because of feminine or masculine. And more just be like,
Right.
it's just hard. And I would rather be up here and not
Up
feel.
here. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. Because it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's really
Yeah.
about leaning into the uncomfortable
Yeah.
and understanding that's where growth is, because
And
growth
that's
is
what we're doing.
uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
we were doing some like reciting of phrases, and like I literally
Yeah.
shut down. I don't know what it was, but it was like a program, like you're not going to participate in this.
Yeah,
And
so we were doing your EFT session,
yeah,
so
and talk
which is
about
tapping
like
on the meridian lines. Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
crazy. I was like talk, and I was really upset about
Yeah.
having to feel like so vulnerable about that
Hmm.
practice really triggering me.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, because it that practice is like essentially about unraveling like wired stories,
Yeah.
like changing the neuroplasticity of the body, essentially. And a lot of times we hold on to, I don't like to overuse the word trauma, but we hold on to like wounds.
Hmm.
And sometimes we identify ourselves through our wounds,
Yeah.
to where they just become a part of who we are. And so when we begin the work of like unraveling and really just even being in awareness of them and looking at them, it can be very triggering, because then it's also this idea of, if I work on healing this part of myself, then who am I without
Hmm.
this? You know,
Mm.
we base our identity so much sometimes on our wounds
Right.
that it does us a disservice, you know. And then the ego comes in, is like, oh no, it's comfortable here, you want to be here, this is comfortable, you know this, right? Even to the something I often see, and it's something that I saw in myself, it's like when you grow up in a state of chaos, even you can become very comfortable in the chaos, to
Hmm.
where like if you're resting more, like things are kind of mellow and things are going good,
Right.
you're like, something's wrong,
Right.
something's wrong, I need to make chaos so I can feel safe, because it's this false idea of safety, right? And that's where we get again into those survival states, where it's like, I have to create chaos so that way I can have some false conceived idea of safety,
Totally.
because that's what's comfortable. Yeah. And so I think we've just become so accustomed to our own survival state sometimes,
Yeah.
that to go into anything outside of that doesn't feel safe. And so we
Right.
have to, that's a learned behavior, we have to learn how to create safety. One of my teachers always says, like, in order for us to feel safeness in our internal body, we have to create safety in our
Mm.
external body,
Mm.
in our external landscape. Yeah. Because it's really, again, a lot of times our body holds all of these codes and all of these wounds, that something doesn't even have to be happening in our outside world, we immediately go back to that space if we're triggered by an emotion, that it puts us back into that memory, right? Or into that wound, that
Hmm.
we start to behave in a way that mimics that and
Right.
expresses that. So yeah. And I always tell people, it's like, anxiety is the future, depression is the past,
Yeah.
and balance is in the presence
Right.
of existing in
Absolutely.
the moment right then, right?
Hmm.
We're going all over the place.
No, well,
And see,
that's the great thing about it is like honestly, I feel like you tap into so many different areas.
yeah.
I don't even know how you get started on a plan. So let's just take a quick, let's take me as your subject.
yeah, yeah.
And when you met me, obviously, like how would you even start? Where would you go? Obviously, you get my birth information.
Yeah, so that's usually where it starts. So typically it's like, I want your birth information because I want to see, I want to look up your astrology and your human design. But I
Mhm.
always start on an intuitive level. You want me to speak personally for you,
Sure.
what it was
Yeah,
at
you can.
first?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so personally for you, what I felt was this big craving to be in tune with your body, but also this feeling of never understanding or really feeling safe in
Hmm.
that. And so yeah, that's usually how it starts, is we do an intuitive read. And really it was just about you feeling, you were up here a lot. There was a
Hmm.
lot going on up here. Like your energy was just almost like a cyclone. You know, to where it was just like, let's just like actually bring you into presence of where
Hmm.
you are and who you are, and understand how magical you are.
Hmm.
Because there's that too. There was like a lot of doubt in yourself about your gifts even, and who you were, and you were just
Yeah.
like this highly gifted, just like walking around, and you're like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh my god, don't you see? Which is what I love to do, because for me it's really about, how can I show you the magic that lives within you?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we have so many programs, and
Hmm.
patterns playing out from our childhood or from even past lives, that make us forget
Yeah.
that we who we are. Yeah. So typically the way that it starts is, well, I'm always doing like an intuitive read first.
Hmm.
Um, and then it really starts with like a conversation of like, what is your constitution? Where are you at right now? What are things you're experiencing in your body and emotionally?
And we're typically starting with some sort of emotional work because I'm a big believer that any disease or disease that happens in the body, 99.9% of the time is connected to something emotional, right? Because the body will speak. If we do not listen to our emotions, typically the body will end up showing up and say, "Hey, listen to me." Sign of like what the symptoms are and what's going on. Then I'll start the work of kind of getting to the root of things, right? And so then typically first time working with me is like we're either getting on some sort of herbal regimen, doing some sort of energy healing session or both, and working with plants and with energy work to kind of begin the process of unlocking and unraveling wounds and things trapped in the body. Because a lot of times we have our trauma gets trapped in the soma and creates stagnancy, which then creates illness. Yeah. So that's typically where we start. And then just depending on the level in which we're working on, usually we're making a customized plan that's involving my whole premise of the stuff that I do is movement magic medicine. So we're working with some sort of movement practice, some sort of practice dealing with the somatic work, which is the connection of the mind and body through breath, movement, sound. So that's always going to be incorporated. And then, of course, there's going to be some sort of magic, which magic comes in many different forms. And then medicine, whether with the herbs, with the plants, or with plant medicine that I work with. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Primal expert,
Primal
instructor.
movement. Yeah.
Primal movement instructor too, which
I love primal movement.
the reason why you do what you do, because there's some level of the physical movement that you said that really
100%.
ties everything
Yeah,
nicely.
primal movement. Yeah, primal movement. The whole reason I even started because I've always done movement in some form. I've always been a practitioner of yoga. But for me, something I was seeing for myself personally is I tend to channel a lot.
Yeah.
And so that was causing me to constantly be in kind of this state of like, and I need more grounding because I am fire and water. I don't have a lot of earth in my chart. Primal movement was a personal practice at first because I've always done some form of movement. But so primal movement is more like animal style flows. It's really about this connection to our primal essence. It's a connection to play. It's a connection to like low ground movement. So being very close to the earth. It focuses a lot on mobility, which is very important as we age. We lose a lot of our mobility and we actually spend our life by being mobile, right? And so for me, it was a very personal thing at first because as someone who channels a lot, and who tends to be in the ethers a lot, I really needed something that was going to connect me to the earth to actually be able to alchemize all of the information that's constantly streaming in, right?
Yeah.
And then it really just became a practice to tap into like my ancestral roots even more. Just even the practice of like using animal noises and doing movement close to the ground really, when we come out of the womb, we explore the earth with our hands and with our lower extremities, right? So it's really about this connection to that instinctual part of us before thought comes into play, before the patterns and programmings are put on us, and to really just invite in that essence of play as a form of alchemy as well. Yeah. So, and then I just realized how important it was. I just like to incorporate all of the things I'm doing to be of most help. So typically I'll break down someone's birth chart and figure out the moves that work best for their constitution, for their birth chart.
I'm excited.
Right?
I wanted to say something about that too before we wrap up, but I don't know if I remember. Oh, I loved how you said movement, because this is another area where I think from what I've learned being in the fitness industry and kind of debunking a lot of fitness terms and kind of yoga, like everyone thinks they need to be super flexible, and it really has nothing to do with it. It has to be about mobility. Mobility is everything, and how you're 100%. Supposed to move. So I think it's great that you found this practice. While yoga is very beneficial, you're not everybody moves the same way, and so you got to find based on your, like you said, your birth chart, just your body type alone. You want to find what works well so you can sustain and maintain good health.
Absolutely. It's like working with where you are so that way it can stretch into what you can be as well. And yoga too, I just want to make sure I say too, yoga is a lifestyle. So it's not just about movement
Right.
too, right?
And it's saying just like any fitness fad, because there's a lot of them out there. I think some people just jump into things because they heard it on TV. They want to work hard rather than smart, you know what I mean? Or what's right for them.
Yeah.
And I think people really need to honor when they approach a yoga practice or whatever. There's so many different types that, they're really connecting with the one that best suits them. And I have family members that do a very specific type of Kriya yoga. And it's within the family, and that's something that they love to do. And they keep telling me I should do it. And I'm like, okay, I got to learn how to really meditate first.
And also understand there's different forms of meditation. And like for you personally, like a sitting down type of meditation isn't the best, but I could see like working with Kriyas or like mantras would be super helpful. Yeah.
I do like to lay down and meditate. Laying down and meditating.
Yeah.
Like I love that.
Yeah, like a yoga nidra. Yeah. I think too, it's just important for people. Something my partner always says that his mother taught him was to like teach people how to think as opposed to what to think. And so I think when you approach life in this way, it kind of gives you the opportunity to play with life and to know that life is an experimentation and to try different things and explore different things. And just because something doesn't necessarily work for you doesn't mean that it's not okay. It's just not for you, right? And it's about being willing to try and kind of move in this trial and error type framework when it comes to life, because I think a lot of us can get discouraged sometimes if some form of movement or any practice that we do doesn't work for us. We tend to like give up or say, oh, well, I'm not doing this right, so that must mean that I can't do this. And it's like, no, you just haven't found the way that's right for you. And I think that can be translated with movement, healing, anything.
I think that's so true. Absolutely. And there's a lot of things out there too that we're lucky that we can try different things. And that's why I said really go into it with your intention and even if, like you said, something didn't sit well with you, there's so many other things to explore. And if you're open, I feel like it calls to you, just like the medicine will call to you when it's your time, and the healing 100%. And people like Ashli will come into your life. And and it's been a beautiful friendship. And I love working with you.
Oh, I love being with you as well.
Yes. Is there anything else that you would like to share today before we wrap up?
Oh, that I would like to share. I would just ask everyone to just be mindful of their internal landscape. We are in winter now, and so there is kind of this energy of going inward and really doing some shadow work and reflecting, and being in preparation for the spring. So just reminding people to rest. I know the holidays can be very hard too, and we can be susceptible to like seasonal depression and things like that. So as we talk about the topic of moving, like just reminding people to move their body, or even just shake their body, and to not become stagnant, because sometimes we can do that in the winter time, and we are supposed to hibernate in a sense, but just like everything on the outside of nature looks like it's dying, underneath the surface it's still alive. So remembering that, I think, is helpful for people. So to even just be working with maybe some spicy roots, working with like cinnamon and ginger and things, and turmeric and things like that during this season would be super helpful, just to keep that internal Agni, that fire kind of moving, to have some sort of movement practice. I do want to say I'm very excited. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out next year. I'm going to be doing a lot more retreats, personally in collaboration with others. So be on the lookout for that. And
share how we can find you, please.
Yes, so you can, my website is lunarcrystalline.com. You can email me, that's probably the easiest way, lunarcrystalline@gmail. It's all pretty standard. And then my Instagram is also a nice way to reach me, lunar_crystalline on Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, she has some awesome videos that she posted, really good content. So definitely check her out on Instagram. Well, I want to thank our audience for joining us
Thanks
today.
so much for having me.
And thanking you for being here. And if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe to the Conscious Broadcast. And we will see you next time on another episode. So have a lovely day.